All right, listen up. Today, we're going to take what you think is your greatest weakness and we're going to reforge it into your ultimate weapon. We're talking about shame, and I'm going to show you exactly how you'll use it to conquer the Japanese language. So you better pay attention.
Okay, let's start by analyzing your current state. We need to talk about that shame you've been carrying around, and don't you dare look away. Confronting this head on, that's the first step.
Let me ask you something. It's a simple question. While you've been studying Japanese, have you ever been completely, utterly embarrassed? Humiliated, even? Have you ever felt that hot sting of shame? Yeah, I already know the answer.
Of course you have. You went to say something, right? You opened your mouth, and what came out was just wrong. It was weird, unnatural. You said some really strange-sounding Japanese.
And bam! In that one instant, you felt it, didn't you? The whole vibe in the room just shifted. That easy, flowing conversation, it stopped dead in its tracks. The whole atmosphere just got weird.
You risked a glance at the person you were talking to, and you saw it, right there on their face. That look of confusion, maybe even a little bit of pity. They looked troubled, and you knew, deep down, it was your fault. And that's when it happened. In that exact moment, your spirit just broke. A little voice inside your head started whispering, "I don't want to speak anymore. I just want to disappear." And so, you shut down.
But listen to me. Listen very carefully. That moment, that feeling of complete failure, that urge to just run and hide, that is the single most important moment in your entire learning journey. Do not waste it. All right, now I'm going to break down the real mechanism of learning for you. I want you to forget everything you think you know. We're about to dissect the true nature of the challenge you're up against. Look, your problem isn't what you think it is. You're convinced your struggle is just about vocabulary and grammar, right? That's a rookie mistake. The real battleground, it's culture, it's human relationships. It's about reading that unspoken atmosphere, the kuki. That fear you have about using keigo, that feeling of not knowing what's appropriate, those aren't grammar problems. You're facing an entirely different world here.
So, to navigate this, we're going to use a specific strategy. It's called autoethnography. Now, I know, it sounds like some complicated academic term, but the idea is actually your new prime directive. It just means this. You're going to use your own experiences as the raw data to understand this new world you're trying to break into.
So here's your new protocol. It's simple. 1. You have an experience. 2. You analyze that experience. 3. You transform it into actual knowledge. And here's the kicker. Every other learner out there, they're already doing this without even thinking about it. But from now on, you are going to do it with intention, with purpose. Now listen up, because this is a critical piece of intel. You need to get this into your head. Human beings only really learn when they screw up. We don't learn from our successes. We learn from our failures, period. What triggers learning is something called gosa, an error. It's that gap between what you predict will happen and what actually happens. You thought, oh, they'll understand this, but they didn't. You thought, my grammar is correct, but it sounded totally unnatural. It's only when that gap is thrown in your face that your brain actually starts to rewire itself. And that brings us to a conclusion you cannot escape. If you stay safe, if you never get hurt in a conversation, you will barely improve. I'm not just being philosophical here. This is the fundamental architecture of learning. No error, no growth. It's that simple. Okay, now for the next phase. Let's talk about how the pain from that failure gets converted directly into power. So when you make that mistake, shame crashes the party. You feel embarrassed. You start to panic. You feel this desperate, overwhelming need to just get out of there. You literally want to disappear. These feelings are intense, right? Well, guess what? They're also incredibly useful.
See, that intense emotion, it's like a supercharger for your memory. Just think about it for a second. The small, trivial mistakes you make, poof, they're gone. You forget them instantly. But those mistakes that made you burn with shame, oh, you never forget those, do you? That feeling sears the whole experience right into your brain.
And what's more, when something is hard, when it makes you really struggle, your brain is forced to process it on a much deeper level. Easy wins are forgettable. It's the struggle. That's what forges a deep, lasting understanding.
So, that leads to the million-dollar question, right? How do you actually find these valuable gaps? How do you pinpoint the exact errors that are going to force you to grow?
The answer is brutally simple. You have to speak. You have to produce output. See, reading and listening, they give you this false sense of security, this illusion of competence. It's only when you actually try to speak or write that the real ugly gaps in your skills are exposed. Output is the tool that tells you exactly where you're weak.
But listen, this might be the most important part of this entire briefing. Just suffering isn't enough. Suffering without analysis is just damage. It does you no good. You have to experience that painful mistake, and then you have to stop and reflect. Ask yourself, why did that happen? What went wrong? That is how you turn raw pain into meaningful progress.
From now on, I want you to think about yourself differently. Stop thinking like a student, start thinking like a warrior. You know why? Because the greatest heroes, they're always covered in scars.
You know, in physics, there's a basic rule, the law of conservation of energy. It says energy can't be created or destroyed. It just changes form. Well, I'm telling you, there's a law of conservation of shame. That embarrassing moment, it creates a huge amount of emotional energy. And that energy doesn't just vanish, it transforms. It becomes skill, it becomes ability.
And the amount of that energy is directly proportional to the size of that gap, the gap between who you want to be and who you actually are in that moment. A small gap means a little bit of pain, sure, and a little bit of growth. But a massive gap, a truly humiliating failure, that creates immense pain. And that immense pain is what gets converted into immense growth. The pain is literally the measure of your potential for change.
Think about it. Heroes in the stories, they don't get strong by beating up on weaklings. No, they face down powerful enemies. They get beaten up, they suffer, they're pushed to their absolute limits, and that is exactly how they get stronger. For you, that strong enemy is a difficult conversation with a native speaker. That's your arena. That's your training ground. Let me tell you something. I was once completely destroyed in a conversation in English. I mean, it was a public execution. And you know what? I chose to be there. I walked into that fire on my own 2 feet. And the result? My learning curve went vertical. It was the best thing that ever happened to me.
But let me be very clear about this. Your mission is not to get yourself destroyed. This is all about a critical balance. If your situation is too safe, there's no friction, and so no growth. But if it's too dangerous, you'll just break. Your job is to find that sweet spot, that optimal amount of friction, a challenge that pushes you but doesn't completely annihilate you.
All right, we've analyzed the situation. We've established the strategy. Now it's time for your final orders.
Shame hurts, doesn't it? I know it does. It's like a fire that makes you feel like you're about to turn to ash. I see that. I acknowledge your pain. But you listen to me very carefully. The amount of heat you feel from that fire, that is the exact amount of power that will be forged and returned to your future self. It is a direct energy transfer.
That power, it doesn't just disappear.
It only changes its form. It converts from the heat of your embarrassment into the cold steel of your competence.
Therefore,
your mission is to go out there and collect that pain. Don't run from it. Hunt it down. Every single scar you earn is a lesson learned, another weapon forged in the fire of your own courage. That is your path to victory. Now go.